Hello, students, and welcome to week 2 of 0026. Just wanted to say hello to you this week and kind of give you an overview of what we were doing this week. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Hopefully you will be able to see exactly what I am seeing. In week 2, we begin to go over subjects and verbs. I have some PowerPoint essay basics. You have your assignments. You've got a social issue paragraph that you're going to do this week. I'm going to show you a great way to begin to write paragraphs and to organize your thoughts into paragraphs. And then I've also got a couple of things for you to read. I've got crappy first drafts, and I want you to just read through that document just so you understand that not every draft is going to be perfect. And then I'm going to go over the subjects and verbs PowerPoint with you so that there's not a lot of confusion. Your assignments usually almost always can be found under the assignments tab. If you go to Dropbox, you should be able to see everything that's due. And you have to scroll down because for some reason it's not in order. I've got to call into tech support to try to find out what's going on with that. But your first paragraph here, the social issue 1 is due on February the 12th. You have until midnight to turn it in. And then you also will have grammar practice. And that is all the way down at the bottom. It says grammar practice week 2. So those will be your 2 assignments for this week, as well as viewing the PowerPoints and taking notes. And remember, you're looking actually at the teacher side of Brightspace and not at the student side of Brightspace. So it may look a little bit different to you. I'm going to go ahead and go over the PowerPoint with you for this week and talk to you a little bit about subjects and verbs. And then I'm going to do an example of how I would begin to outline a paragraph. I did provide you with a paragraph outline here to help you organize your thoughts. You don't have to turn that in at all, but it is just something to help you as you're writing paragraphs. It's a tool. So I'm going to just open up here this PowerPoint for you so that we can go over some of the things. Now, the subject and verb PowerPoint. Also, I have another PowerPoint, but this one is just sort of the lesson for you. The other one is there for reference as well. But I'm going to go ahead and open it up on my screen here. So week 2, I've got from sentences to paragraphs, really, and that's sort of where I'm wanting to take you from beginning sentences to being able to organize your thoughts into a paragraph. So our learning objectives are to identify the components of a basic sentence and to identify the 4 most serious writing errors that I have encountered and that I see just as a professor here. So the components of an effective sentence are very important. You need a subject, a verb, and a complete idea. It has to make sense on its own. So complete sentences are also called independent clauses. Those words are interchangeable. A clause is a group of words that make up a sentence, and an independent clause is a group of words that may stand alone as a complete grammatically correct thought. So all complete sentences have at least one independent clause. You can identify it by reading it on its own and looking for the subject and the verb. So for example, here, I'll just use my arrow here. We went to the store is an independent clause. It is a sentence that stands alone. We bought the ingredients on our list is also an independent clause. We went home is another independent clause. And then we went home is not an independent clause. You have to have that information. You have to have a subject and a verb. So that's what makes an effective sentence. So with subjects, when you read a sentence, you want to look for the subject first or what the sentence is about. The subject usually appears at the beginning of the sentence. It can appear as a noun or a pronoun. A noun is a word that identifies a person, place, thing, or idea. And a pronoun is a word that replaces a noun. So common pronouns are I and he and she and it and you and they and we. So in the sentences that I have here across, I have them highlighted. We've got the subject underline 1. So in this particular sentence, Malik is the project manager for this project. He will give us our assignments. So in that sentence, the subject is a person. You have Malik. The pronoun he replaces and refers back to Malik. On another note, in academic writing, personal pronouns are not used unless absolutely necessary. If you are writing a narrative essay, then you would use personal pronouns, but you always need to write in the third person and in present tense when writing academically. We'll get to more on that a little bit later, but I just thought it was important that you know that. So compound subjects, sentences can actually have more than one person, place, or thing as a subject. These subjects are often called compound subjects, and they're useful if you want to discuss several things at once. So for example, if I had in this sentence, Desmond and Maria have been working on that design for almost a year, I have two subjects. I have both Desmond and I have Maria. In the second sentence, I have books, magazines, and online articles, all being good resources. In that second sentences, I have three subjects. So those are compound subjects. You have books, magazines, and online articles. Verbs, very easy. Pretty much they're the action. It's an action word that shows what the subject is doing. It also links the subject to a describing word. So there are three types of verbs that you can use in a sentence. You have an action verb, you have a linking verb, and you have helping verbs. So essentially with action verbs, it connects the subject to an action. The dog barked at the jogger, or he gave a short speech before we ate. Both of those are action verbs because it's showing what the subject is doing. A linking verb connects the subject of the sentence to a describing word. So in this case, the colt was old and dirty. You're talking about the coat, and that is a linking verb. The clock seemed broken. Again, you're talking about the clock. So that is a linking verb. It links the verb to the subject. So if you have trouble telling the difference between action verbs and linking verbs, remember that an action verb shows that the subject is doing something, but a linking verb just connects the subject to another word that describes it. Action verb here, the boy looked for his glove, and the linking verb is the boy looked tired. Again, both sentences use the same verb, but the two sentences have completely different meanings. In the first sentence, the verb is describing the little boy's action. In the second sentence, the verb is describing how the boy looks. So that really, I hope that helps. It makes a little more sense. It can be confusing. Helping verbs, those are verbs that are used with the main verb to describe a mood or a tense. So those are usually a form of be, do, or have, and also can. So for example, here, the restaurant is known for its variety of dishes. Okay. She does speak up when prompted in class. We have seen that movie 3 times. And she can tell when someone walks on her lawn. So is, does, have, and can are helping verbs, and known, speak up, seen, and tell are all verbs. So whenever you're writing or editing sentences, you want to just keep your subject and your verb in mind. And as you write, ask yourselves these questions to keep yourself on track. Who or what is the sentence about? And the verb, of course, which word shows an action or links the subject to a description? And that should help you. Prepositional phrases. Sometimes when you read a sentence, it has more than one noun or pronoun in it. So you'll encounter a group of words that includes a preposition with a noun or a pronoun. They are what I like to call connectors. They connect a noun or pronoun or a verb to another word that describes it. Common prepositions include in or on, under, near, by, with, and about. The best way I tell students to remember prepositions is typically anything a squirrel can do to a tree. A squirrel can run in the tree. A squirrel can run on the tree. The squirrel can run under a tree. The squirrel can run near a tree. The squirrel can run by the tree. The squirrel can't necessarily run with the tree because a tree, of course, is immobile, but it can do just about everything else. So a prepositional phrase begins with a preposition and modifies or describes a word. It cannot act as the subject of a sentence. So We went on a business trip. If you notice here, I have the preposition circled. On a business trip is the prepositional phrase. That restaurant with the famous pizza was on the way. Again, with the famous pizza is the prepositional phrase. We stopped for lunch. For lunch is the prepositional phrase. So in this particular case, I'm not expecting you to be able to identify them overnight, but certainly you can watch this video as many times as you want, and hopefully it will help you. And my rule of thumb, again, is anything a squirrel can do to a tree when it comes to prepositions. Sentence structure, really, really important, because now that you know what makes a complete sentence, a subject and a verb, you can use other parts of speech to build on this basic structure. Good writers use a variety of sentence structures to make their work more interesting. So there are 6 basic subject-verb patterns that can enhance your writing. I have a sample sentence for each of them here on this slide. As you read each sentence, take note of where each part of the sentence falls. Notice that some sentence patterns use action verbs and others use linking verbs. So in this particular one, computers hum. Computers is your subject, hum is the verb. Then in the second one, you have subject linking verb noun. Computers is a subject, are is a linking verb, tools, that's a noun. Then you have the subject, a linking verb, then an adjective. So computers, subject, are, linking verb, expensive, adjective. Subject, verb, adverb. Computers are your subject, calculate, verb, quickly, adverb. Remember that an adjective is a word that describes something, and an adverb modifies the verb. So they almost always end in ly, and if you see ly, most likely you'll know that it's an adverb. In this case, you have subject, verb, and direct object. When you write a sentence with a direct object, make sure that that direct object receives the action. So Sally is our subject. Rides is the verb. A motorcycle, that's a direct object. You have to be able to tell your audience what the subject of the verb or the direct object of the verb is. So Sally rides a motorcycle. Okay. Then you have subject, verb, indirect object, and direct object. So in this sentence structure, an indirect object explains to whom or to what the action is being done. So the indirect object is a noun or pronoun, and it comes before the direct object in a sentence. So for example, in this one, my coworker is the subject. Gave is the verb. Me is the indirect object. The reports is the direct object. So what did my coworker give me? And the answer would be the reports. So this just helps to enhance your writing. These are the 6 styles for subject verb patterns. Fragments, this is the biggest issue that I see with students, fragments and run-ons. All the sentences that I've encountered or showed you so far have been independent clauses. But as you look more closely at past writing assignments or things that you've done in writing, perhaps you may notice that some of your sentences are incomplete. A sentence that is missing a subject or a verb is called a fragment. It includes a description or may express part of an idea, but it does not express a complete thought. So for example, the fragment that I have here is children helping in the kitchen. Okay. No, not a complete thought. So the complete sentence here, and I notice I bolded what I added to the sentence, is children helping in the kitchen, and I added often make a mess. That makes the sentence complete. You can easily fix a sentence fragment by adding the missing subject or a verb. In the example, this sentence above was missing a verb. Adding the word often make a mess creates a subject, verb, noun sentence structure. So that is definitely something you need to look out for. If you're using Microsoft Word, most of the time it will identify fragments for you. But if there's an issue, then I suggest to students always to read your work aloud before you turn it in. Trust me, you can catch a lot of errors that way. So here I have an editing sentences fragments flowchart. So Or you can ask yourselves questions. Does it contain a subject? If it does not, then the sentence is a fragment. You need to add a subject. If the sentence contains a verb and it does not have if the sentence does not contain a verb, then it's a fragment. Add a verb. If it has then a subject and a verb, then it's a complete sentence. Common sentence errors, fragments often occur because of a common error. If you start a sentence with a preposition or a dependent word, an infinitive or a gerund. However, if you use the 6 basic sentence patterns when you write, you should be able to avoid these errors and thus avoiding fragments. Here's the thing. You guys are emerging writers. I do not expect perfection. If you see a preposition, check to see that it's part of a sentence containing a subject and a verb. If it's not connected to a complete sentence, it's a fragment and you have to fix it. You can add the prepositional phrase to the end of the sentence. If you add it to the beginning of the other sentence, then you're going to have to insert a comma after the prepositional phrase. And we'll get to more of that as we go further on in the course. This is only week 2. I don't want to overwhelm you. I have here included a flowchart that if you're editing sentences that begin with a preposition, can you find a prepositional phrase? If the answer is yes, and you can find a subject and a verb, then you should have a complete sentence. If you cannot, then you need to add a prepositional phrase or add a prepositional phrase to the beginning or add a comma after the prepositional phrase. Run-on sentences, that's another big one that I see and encounter in this course. Just as short, incomplete sentences are problematic, sentences that are too long can also be problematic. If you have 2 or more independent clauses that have been incorrectly combined, those are known as run-on sentences. It can be either fused sentence or it can be a comma splice. So a fused sentence, for example, in this one, a family of foxes lived under our shed. Young foxes played all over the yard. That is a really long sentence and it doesn't make any sense. So it's fused together. You have 2 sentences that are thrown together. You could add a couple of different things. You could join a semicolon. You could add a conjunction, a coordinating conjunction to fix that fused sentence. A comma splice is when you throw a comma in the middle of a sentence and there's 2 complete sentences. We looked outside. That's a complete sentence. It has a subject and a verb. We looked outside, comma, the kids were hopping on the trampoline. Again, that's still a comma splice. The kids were hopping on the trampoline is, again, you have your subjects, the kids, and your verb, hopping. If you're correcting a run-on sentence, you can correct the punctuation. If you add a period, it will correct it by creating 2 separate sentences. So for example, with this run-on, there were no seats left, comma, we had to stand in the back. That's a run-on sentence because there's a comma there and shouldn't be. So you could just add the period and eliminate the personal pronoun. There were no seats left, period. We had to stand in the back. Okay, you can use a semicolon between the 2 complete sentences, and that also corrects the error. A semicolon allows you to keep the 2 closely related ideas together in one sentence. When you punctuate with a semicolon, make sure that both parts of the sentences are independent clauses. So for example, here on the right-hand side, I've got a run-on. The accident closed both lanes of traffic. We waited an hour for the wreckage to be cleared. Do you see how I read that sentence? Because that's how it sounds. So you want to fix it and add a semicolon because it separates 2 independent clauses. The accident closed both lanes of traffic, semicolon. We waited an hour for the wreckage to be cleared. When you use a semicolon to separate 2 independent clauses, you can add a transition to the word to show the connection between the 2 thoughts. After the semicolon, add the transition word and follow it with a comma. So in this case, the project was put on hold. We didn't have time to slow down, so we kept working. To fix that, you can see the project was put on hold, semicolon. However, that's using the transition word. We didn't have time to slow down, comma, add the coordinating conjunction. So we kept working. Still, it's a long sentence, but it's complete and it's grammatically correct. And that's the important thing. I can talk all day long about correcting run-on sentences. You can add a coordinating conjunction, as I've mentioned previously. So the acronym FANBOYS really helps. That's for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. If you want to link two independent clauses, you can actually add in a coordinating conjunction, and then your sentence will make sense. So the run-on sentence that I've given you for an example here, the new printer was installed, no one knew how to use it. You can fix that by the new printer was installed, comma, but no one knew how to use it. So these are the key takeaways I want you to get from this week. A sentence is complete when it contains both a subject and a verb, and a complete sentence makes sense on its own. Every sentence has to have a subject, which usually appears in the beginning of a sentence. A subject can be a noun or a pronoun. A compound subject contains more than one noun. A prepositional phrase describes or modifies another word in the sentence, but cannot be the subject of a sentence. A verb is often an action word that indicates what the subject is doing. Verbs may be action verbs, linking verbs, or helping verbs. Variety in sentence structures and length improves writing by making it more interesting and more complex. If you focus on the 6 basic sentence pattern, it will enhance your writing. And then fragments and run-on sentences are 2 common errors in sentence construction. They can be corrected by adding a missing subject or a verb. But if the fragment begins with a preposition or a dependent word, it can be corrected by combining the fragment with another sentence. And run-on sentences can also be corrected by adding appropriate punctuation or adding a coordinating conjunction. With that being said, this week you're going to put this week's grammar lesson into use into an assignment in the Dropbox. You'll complete the social issues paragraph, and you'll complete the subject and verb quiz. All of these, 2 of these are under Dropbox. The other one is under assessments. So here with that, I'm going to go over with you my personal process that I use when I am actually writing paragraphs, single paragraphs. So let me share my screen here. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. Yeah. A little bit of adjusting here. Okay. Flip that around. There we go. Let's autofocus. All right. So this is the single paragraph outline template that I use. And this week I've asked you to write on a social issue. So social issues can be anything from homelessness to poverty to housing crisis to really anything that's happening in society that is an issue in society. I'm an educator, so I'm going to talk about something that is affecting educators all over the state of Florida, and I'm going to talk about book banning. And the reason why I'm going to talk about that as a social issue is because I'm a high school teacher as well as a college professor, and it is affecting me as a high school teacher. So I'm going to use a couple of different colors here as I write. I need a topic sentence here. And then here I'm going to need 4 supporting points and a concluding sentence. And after all of this is completed, then at that point, you will be able to put it all together and you should have a cohesive paragraph. So as I'm going to talk about book banning. That's a really big issue currently right now in the state of Florida. So I'm just going to talk it out as I'm writing. So this is what I do. Again, and I'm left-handed, so pay no attention to my crooked page. So I'm going to say that books are often considered a mirror to issues in society and the time periods in which such stories take place. This really is more of an introductory sentence, and then I'm going to go into the topic sentence. So I'm going to say currently, comma, book banning in schools is becoming increasingly more common. Now, that is my topic sentence. Book banning in schools is becoming increasingly more common. And so I'm just going to put a little star here so that I can see that this is my topic sentence. This is what I'm going to talk about as my social issue. And like I said, the reason why I'm talking about this is because I do teach at the secondary level, and it is something that affects me as a high school teacher. So I'm going to talk about how and why that affects me. So I'm going to say first, my first point would be authors release titles about often controversial topics. Okay, so that's going to be my first point here. And you know, it's simple, but it's also a very important point. I'm going to say here next, if I were to, and again, I'm writing this out, so I'm going to add to it and diverse groups. Okay. So controversial topics include LGBTQ plus protagonists, diverse groups, typically are marginalized individuals such as African American individuals, people that are affected by police brutality. That goes under controversial topics, things like that. That's one of the things that's been certainly been made a major issue in the news today. Also, there are also some titles, some classic titles even. Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye, Beloved, some things have triggers for people that have post-traumatic stress disorder. And so as a result, some groups have lobbied to have such books removed. And I could add from circulation, but I'm just going to put removed. And I could also add or limited access, because in some places they just limit access and they allow students to read the books with parental permission. My next point would be actions such as this silences the voices of marginalized groups. My fourth point would be limiting, and I put students because I have multiple, limiting students' exposure to such books inhibits or prevents critical thinking skills. So again, I have a topic sentence here. I have 4 points in my paragraph, and then I would need a concluding sentence. So I would just take and write a conclusion sentence here, and I would write something like, and I would use some sort of introductory phrase to demonstrate that, because this is kind of a cause and effect paragraph. I would say, as a result, students and teachers are adversely affected due to the lack of opportunity to read books with diverse representations. Now, I always recommend outlining what you're writing about, just because it will help you gather your thoughts and keep it in a coherent place. But what I have here is a paragraph. So I've got, books are often considered a mirror to issues in society and the time periods in which such stories take place. Currently, book banning in schools is becoming increasingly more common. That is my topic sentence. Authors release titles often about controversial topics and diverse groups. Some groups have lobbied to have such books removed. Actions such as this silence the roles of marginalized groups. I'm sorry, voices. Silences the voices of marginalized groups. Can't even read my own handwriting. Limiting students' exposure to such books inhibits critical thinking skills. As a result, students and teachers are adversely affected due to the lack of opportunities to read books with diverse representations. Now, it is not a perfect paragraph by any means, but if I take and put all of this together, all 4 sentences, the introduction, the topic sentence, and the concluding sentences, I have a full paragraph with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sentences. And a generalized paragraph is 7 to 8 sentences. I like to see 8 to 10, but I'll take 7. And this is provided for you under your resources for week 2. And I recommend using it just to outline it. You don't have to turn this in, but it does help the student who struggles with writing to be able to sort of see their thoughts on paper. So you've got that, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here, because you'll be able to play this back as much as, or as little as you'd like. So I'm going to stop sharing that. But you do have that as well. Now, you also will have this week, I'm going to go back to sharing the screen here. Get rid of that. Go back to sharing the screen to your weekly assignments. And again, so on your weekly assignments, you will find a assignment to put this week's grammar lesson into use under Dropbox. you will complete the social issues paragraph in Dropbox. If you are struggling to find a social issues, then let me just see here. I'm going to stop share, and I am going to do a web search just really quickly for you on social issues. So I'm going to share my screen. Get back to my Zoom here. Share screen. And I just did a web search, just a quick web search. So one of the biggest issues right now of a social issue in America is student debt. Number 2 is wage inequality. Number 3 is healthcare. Number 4 is housing. Number 5 is voting rights. Number 6, reproductive rights. Number 7, book banning in schools. I told you it's a major social issue. Number 8, LGBTQ rights. So there's 8 of them just here on a search that you could write on. You don't have to write on every one of them, just pick one to write on. And, you know, it could be something that you're really passionate about. But certainly, I think that all of these are very important issues that you could write on. And it's just a paragraph. You can outline it. Remember not to use personal pronouns in academic writing. That's I and me and you and we and they. That is absolutely not okay, because you're writing in a third person point of view. You want to make sure, like I said, when I was writing this earlier, when I was doing the outline with you, notice I never put a personal pronoun here. I said books are often considered a mirror to issues in society and the time period in which such stories take place. Currently, book banning is becoming increasingly more common. I don't have anything about today I'm going to write about. Today I'm going to talk about. I have no personal pronouns in here. I don't have he or she or me or we or anything like that. So that is extremely important as well, to make sure that you have that. And like I said, a quick Google search will help you with social issues if you're struggling to find out what to do. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that you are aware of the assignments for this week. So I'm going to view the screen as a student and then share it with you. Give me just a moment here. I am going to view as a student and go in here, share my screen with you. Click share here. All right, so I'll go into assignments. I'm going to go to Dropbox, scroll all the way down, and you will see here you have paragraph 1, social issue, that is due on February 12th. Of course, now I'm viewing as a student. It shows that I have not yet submitted the assignment. Of course not, because I'm the teacher, but I can view it as a student. Then I'm going to scroll down again, and I'm going to go here to grammar practice week 2. That is due on February 12th. Both of these are found under the assignments tab. Okay. The assessment tab is where you'll find your quiz. If you'll scroll down, you just take it to the drop down box and you go to the quiz, assessments, quiz list, because it doesn't go live until next week. I'm going to X out of here and let you see that it will go live on Monday. So it should show up. Subject verb quiz due on February 12th, and it's available on February 6th, which is the day that, well, this will actually post today, which is February the 5th, but you know, it will go live on February 6th, which is Monday, and it is available until February the 12th at 11:59, and then at February 13th at 12:01 a.m. it will go away. So you want to make sure you have that completed as well. So I hope that this video has helped you understand what you're supposed to do this week. As always, reach out to me during office hours, and I'll be more than happy to assist. You have my phone number, and I will be more than happy to assist you in any way, shape, or form. Hope you guys have a great week this week, and I will see you next week. You might even actually get to see my face for a video. So have a great week, and good luck with your assignments. And if you have any questions, just reach out and let me know. Thanks so much.